Yeah, it's definitely reductive. I agree. And that's why kind of we need to broaden out music in many ways to a greater audience, and that allows people to break long-standing norms. Another way that we saw you've tried to broaden out music is by going to Zambia and doing charity work there. Can you tell us a little bit about
that? Sorry, I'm just having a sip of Lemsip. Yeah, so I started going there actually when I was an undergrad. When I was in my second year, I think, or my end of my first year. This charity, the Muse Trust, basically put out an advert saying we would love to take 2 Oxford students and 2 Cambridge students to go to Zambia for a month to teach music. The charity was Oxford based, which is why it was those universities. And I applied and ended up going. And we were kind of like dropped there with a couple of contacts and told, off you go. And so it was very much up to us, like what we made of it. And I just completely fell in love with the music, the people, the country, everything about it, and have essentially been going back every year since. And the charity's actually now folded, but I'm carrying on the work, basically taking out different groups of people each year. So mostly it's kind of groups of about 4 people. Sometimes it's the whole choir from Pembroke in Cambridge. And it's just like the most important reminder each year of how incredibly lucky we are, or how incredibly lucky musicians in the UK are to even have the option to be a musician. And I know that the musical world is a little bit grim sometimes, and I know that like funding wise is pretty grim at the moment, but like at least we still have the option to be a musician, because I see these musicians in Zambia who are just as capable and just as driven and want it just as badly, but they're born in a country where being a musician is not a career path, and so they can do it on the side, but they can't do it as their career, which is what they desperately want to do. And so I'm trying desperately to help gently change that and produce like income streams where I can, commissioning composers, things like that. Ultimately, there's only so much I can do as one person. But yeah, I hope it's something I want to keep doing forever. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, it makes me curious actually whether you've come into contact with any like non-traditionally Western instruments maybe whilst you've been out there. I know that the musical landscape might look quite different, or are you more in the traditional Western kind of musical world when you're there?
It's so I see a lot of non-traditional Western singing, which is like fascinating. And so a lot of with clicking, and they often I'll be like, please can I learn? And I tend to just about get it by the end of the trip and then have to be retaught the next time because I'm so bad at learning. I used to have a speech impediment, so learning things with my mouth I really struggle with. But yeah, so non-traditional singing I do encounter. Instruments a little bit, mostly in a couple of the more rural communities we work in, and it's things like guitars that they've made, and African drums that they've made and things like that. And yeah, it's incredible how resourceful they are. We always try and take out instruments as well, but yeah, it's amazing seeing what they can make from just things that they find lying around.
Yeah, how is the the singing technically different? You said you had to like learn to move your mouth in a different way. How different actually is that?
So in many African languages, there's a kind of click like that, and that's incorporated into some of the singing as well. Also, a lot of the singing, at least in the communities that I was working with, a lot of the singing is much more kind of chesty. So whereas we might think more about singing in the head voice, particularly up high, there are these incredible women who sing with like a really chesty tone, but really, really, really high up. And then it morphs into ululating, which is, I'm going to demonstrate it really, really, really quietly, but it goes like, and so they like morph from the singing into that. But also I think the other like big difference that I noticed most when I first took the choir out there was concert culture. And so like we had organized to do a concert in a church, and we turned up and found that there were 5 other choirs there, and we basically just all took it in turns to sing a song. And it was like this sharing of musical ideas, and we just kept going round and round and round. And it was like, one more from you, one more from you. And it just turned into this massive dance party at the end, where we learned one of the songs that one of the other choirs had been singing. They taught it to everyone in the room, and then everyone was just up and dancing. And it's such a it's just such an incredible reminder of like what music is about, and that it's about sharing and enjoying and having like shared experiences, as opposed to one person sitting at the front, everyone sitting quietly and then going, yes, that was good.
Yeah, it must have been insanely touching. I don't know if you have any other cool memories that you could recount from being in Zambia, any amazing points when you were teaching and learning.
There was a family that we worked with this time. So it's me and my partner who were there this year. And it was actually, we basically, our plans fell through last minute for one of the days. And I said to a musician I was working with, I said, have you got any ideas of who we could work with for a day? Because we have this spare time. And he said, go to this address. And he just like sent us the pin on Google Maps, and just said, it's a great musical family. And we had no idea what to expect at all. And we had this amazing taxi driver who we stayed with for the whole week called Charles. And we were driving, following Google Maps to try and get to this pin. And it took us like through the middle of a rubbish tip. And he was like, where are we going? And so this journey was like crazy. And we're thinking, what the hell are we doing? And then we get to this house. It turns out we'd taken the wrong route, because Google Maps can't tell the difference between like roads and not roads. And we get there, and this incredible group of musicians, it's like the sort of Von Trapp family equivalent. So the dad is called Don, and he's basically just like, everything in his life is about trying to give his children musical opportunities. And so he sat down with a list and was like, these are the things I want to learn from you, like how to use social media for marketing, how to sell an album, where should an album go, how do I get an album to a Western audience from Zambia? Like all of these, he'd thought it through, and he had this really clear list. And he was like, right, I want to set up a music academy in Zambia. How should I go about that? And then they sang to us, and he was like, make us better. And I literally just started crying and was like, I cannot make you better. That you are so brilliant, and you have so much personality and individuality that comes out in your singing. Do not let anyone change that, because they're just so well blended as a family. And we ended up going back, spending another day with them. And it genuinely felt like life-changing. And now, we're hopefully commissioning one of the girls to write some pieces for Pembroke, because they have Sibelius, the notation software, and are trying to learn how to use that. So we're going to pair her up with a composer in Cambridge, and make sure that that's something that by writing the pieces, she can then write it into Sibelius, learn how to use that at the same time, and get an income stream from it. And various other ideas to try and just like shine a spotlight on them. Sorry, that was a very long-winded way of answering that question.
That's incredible. It's so touching, and I think that's really what makes music so human. I mean, we spoke about AI at the beginning, and I think that's really what's gonna always prevail in terms of separating the human from the machine.